Here's the title for this one. That's what she said.
Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. It's QUACKCAST number 556. I'm Ozone Ocean. With me is Baines, Tance, and Pitface. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Lovely. So this week we're talking about flipping off the author by saying their words, their interpretation of their own work is meaningless, and what they're really saying is what we're saying. So it's not criticism, or not the standard criticism, like, you know, using some sort of a lens and saying, yeah, well, we're viewing it through a post-colonialist kind of view. We're saying, no, this is what the author is actually saying. This is not what we think the work is about, or we think that it could represent. This is, or where we're looking at it through this point of view, where we're saying this is what the author is actually saying, and what they reckon about the work is not true. This is what they actually mean. So this is an interesting thing to talk about. But before we get into that, Kwai is going to tell us about her featured comic, which is Sapling. So Kwai, please tell us about Sapling.
Hello, this is QUACKCAST, and the feature I have selected for this week is Sapling by Shelmnop, and it is rated E for everyone. Jumbo-sized chartreuse fingers mysteriously grow out of the ground. That is, until Farmer Mary and a team of botanists sever the middle appendage from its freakish origin and send it down a metal, wired pipe to be tested on in a lab. Now that hand grew. It grew so enormous that a green giant made from the dirt of the earth and smelling of rainfall on dry soil now sits in its place without its severed middle finger. The art uses a flexible palette of warm, neutral earth tones, splashed with exciting neon green. Comic page layouts are innovative, with rounded box edges. Come and meet the gentle green giant of the forest and read Sapling by Shelmnop, rated E.
And that was QUACKCAST with Sapling. Okay, so next up we have the featured music that Gumwallace has given us. And it's the theme to Secrets of Uncrom. Secrets, hidden knowledge, secret cult meetings in guttering candlelight, murder most foul and plots thickening. This atmospheric electronic tune has layer upon layer of interesting and disparate sounds suggesting mystery, darkness, and hidden things. So take it away, Gumwallace, with Secrets of Uncrom. Gumwallace with Secrets of Uncrom, which is a great comic that I featured a while ago. It's by Secrets of Uncrom. So it's rated M. Have a look at it. It was worthy enough to be featured, so it's worthy enough to be looked at. And yes, so now we're going to talk about putting words in the author's mouth and denying their meaning of their explanation for their work, coming up with a new meaning. So yeah, that's the topic that we have this week. So Tance came up with this topic because she was thinking about the TV series Squid Game. So a critique had done a critique of the author's explanation for why the author wrote the work that he did. Wasn't that right, Tance? He was sort of talking about a critique of capitalism, and then
I don't know if it would even qualify as a critique, because what they said, literally in the title, but also, expanding in the article, was that author said that Squid Game is a critique on capitalism and competition, blah, blah. And she said that, but actually, it is not about that.
Mm.
It is about a critique on communism. So she literally said that the author didn't know what he was talking about his own creation, and that she knew what his creation was about. Sort of like, move over, author. I know what it is that you wrote. You don't know what it is that you wrote, which I found personally, as an author myself, I found it super obnoxious and basically an erasure of the author in a way, because absolutely an author can try to go for something, like make a critique of whatever or some social commentary and stuff, and totally miss the mark, or even accidentally achieve the opposite result. But that is something that you do by acknowledging what they were trying to do, and then critiquing, saying that unfortunately it didn't work out, which is absolutely legit. You do not go about saying that you do not know what you wanted to do, but I know what you wanted to do. And I think that this is where the issue lies, not in a different interpretation or finding different themes and patterns in something that the creator has written, because that happens all the time in art, and it's part of the beauty of art. It's just that you cannot really be so rude to the author or the creator in general, the creator that created the thing. That's what rubbed me the wrong way.
It's always a bad kind of criticism. I mean, there's a lot of bad criticism, and that is one of the specific kinds. I always found that when I was doing, when I was studying art as an art student, and people would criticize work with that point of view, saying, so this is actually what the artist means. So you can't say that really without actually, knowing what the artist means, because, then you're just putting words in their mouth. The way to criticize it is by going, so this symbol generally means this, or, this thing would mean this, or, I feel that this sort of indicates this, rather than saying, actually, this is what the artist means, because the artist means what the artist means.
You can talk about what you believe an artist means, but you have to give it the caveat of, this is what I believe, and then of course you have to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you, Pitface, you had an excellent example with Lord of the Rings, and him going on the record saying that Lord of the Rings is not based on his World War II experiences.
World War One experiences.
World War One experiences. Although there are a lot of things that readers can see as influences, at least, or even as direct symbolism. So, we have to acknowledge that this was not the intent of the author, but at the same time, we can see it. We can see clear war imagery that clearly refers to specific characteristics of that particular war. So,
yeah, well,
both.
With that example, it comes down to not that the author meant this as a one-to-one representation or even an indirect representation of this thing. It's this author wanted to write about war, but so they used their experience in order, of their experience of the world contained war. So they were able to draw on this. It's not meant to be this. It's just I experienced it, so I'll use that to make my world have it more veracity in this, and that's what they did. So there's a very distinct difference between those two things, isn't there?
Absolutely, and I could totally understand an author's wish to be like, if I say it's based on this, it's going to give that particular thing too much, I don't want to say credence, but like too much bearing on how people read my story, or like people are going to look for that thing then rather than take in what I've written for its own worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because they're too busy drawing parallels between things. So this is that, and this is that. Oh, but you should have written this better because in reality, this thing sort of followed this, and you need a bit of a more parallel of this character. So you're a shitty author for not doing it.
That's annoying when that happens. But on the other hand, like I remember, for example, when we were talking about the title of Without Moonlight, and Oz said that he felt that this was a symbolism of the Leapers actually working under like starlight only to be covered by the darkness, which is totally legit, and it was totally not what I had intended. It doesn't go against at all the whole theme, and I'm really glad that you saw this connection in the whole story. It's just that I went there from a completely different path, and that's very legit. And I love that when it happens in art. The point is that when critics look for the one truth in what the author wanted to say, and the one truth is what they have seen in the art, I think that it crosses a line that should not be crossed, and it is very disrespectful. I think that's what the word that I'm looking for in this. So that was the rant, basically. I haven't seen Squid Game, ironically, although I'm a K-drama fan. I don't think that it is the best that the K-drama industry has to show.
Well, just watch your deathmatch anime and you'll get all your needs will be fulfilled. You will never have to watch a stupid live action knockoff of the genre.
I don't know.
Have you seen it, Oz? I think Pitt said you haven't, right?
Hey? No, I haven't watched it. Yeah.
Me neither.
But I have seen Danganronpa, so I am up on my deathmatch fucking anime and shit. You better believe it.
Nice.
I watched a playthrough of Danganronpa, but that's not here or there.
I'm pretty sure, because I know the school of acting and directing that they have in South Korea, that it will be very well done and very well executed. It's just not the K-drama I'm looking for usually. So I haven't really watched it. I know some of the actors, and they are very good actors that I have seen. So, yeah, I mean, and I'm pretty sure that if the author wanted, like the creator wanted to make a critique on capitalism, that's what he did. And yeah, I'm inclined not to believe the critic.
Yeah.
I have not seen Danganronpa.
I'm going around, but don't just forget I said it. It's like an anime styled
Oh, I have.
itch trial. I watched the Game Grumps play through it, and they were just streaming their entire run of it, which is like over 40 hours long. So that's why it's just fresh in my brain. So when you said survival,
I
anime,
have
that
seen
was
it.
the-
Yeah, it was
the
horrific.
first
I had to
thing.
stop it. It was too grim.
Oh, it was just.
It's
It's
just
it's a lot.
too
No
evil.
plays.
just these anime
Oh,
deathmatch
there
are
are things
just
out there that
just so misanthropic.
it's
Yeah.
It's oh my god. That's one thing that I came to, like, when Tance originally posted this thing about the the anti-communist, or is it, critique of capitalism. My comment was, the whole genre already exists and is old. That genre is not a new thing that's been around for a long time. I just watched a film like last night that was done in like 2006 with Cillian Murphy, the guy from Peaky Blinders. He's in it, and Lucy Liu. They're in it together. Anyway, these two characters were arguing about which is better, Korean snuff cartoons or Japanese deathmatch anime. So this is like almost 15 years ago, and this it was in. These tropes are so popular that people were making fun of this 15 years ago. So this is a thing that's been around. And the thing was, like, if you're going to do a critique of the Squid Game, you're going to have to go back and see where it came from in order to do a proper critique, of the genre, rather than just.
That would require studying up on actual South Korean filmography, first of all, and the other thing, the point, you could use a genre to make any kind of commentary, So the fact that there is a tradition, especially in Asian cinema and anime and the like, that has this deathmatch plot, so to speak, is just a framework within which you can make any symbolism you like.
Of course.
It just came across so ignorant. It was ignorant, and it also did a lot of mental gymnastics in that. Oh, okay, I want to make sure that people that like Squid Game do not, also internalize any anti-capitalist message or whatever. Like you could see that.
It wasn't just bad commentary; it was bad commentary with an agenda to it. Then, okay, yeah, that's
absolutely.
That might be the big line that separates something that's like interesting, putting something in an alternative context or something like that, or giving an alternative take, or disagreeing and pointing out why, versus having an agenda and trying to assume authority and
bad faith argument kind of shit.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And to be honest, I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, so I went to see other articles that she has written, and it's an agenda.
You actually did do your research there. So.
Yeah, a little bit, not much, just a little bit, just to get a feel. Before I dissed her. But I don't like that. I really don't like that. Even if she didn't have an agenda and it's just like, oh, I know better, I still wouldn't like it. Because it's completely erasing the creator as a creator. And it's just like, oh, this work just sprung up. And now I discovered it, and I can explain it because I know what it is about. I don't know. I really don't like it.
I know.
Like
Speaking
controlling
for
the narrative about it a little bit
Yeah.
and trying to.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. It's so disrespectful.
it's annoying when people do that, isn't it? It's always annoying. It's like a bit of a tangent, Uh, like I was annoyed when there's this new current popular thing of reinterpreting the Medusa story and saying, "Oh my God, isn't it so sad? Like, you know, she's actually a victim, and you know, like this Perseus came along, cut off her head, and, you know, she was turned into a gorgon because of, you know, some god assaulted her in the temple when she was a temple priestess." And I thought, that's not the version of the Medusa and Perseus and the Titans that I've ever learned about. So I actually did, instead of just going on the usual thing about saying, no, this is what I've been taught, it's different from what you've been taught, I actually went and I thought, oh, I'll look this up and actually see where it comes from. And so I went to the footnotes and like the references, and then looked up the original translations of all the different versions of the myths and where they all came from, and none of them characterize Medusa as a victim. Where that comes from is like a very kind of hint in Ovid, who was a Roman, who wrote like hundreds of years after the whole Medusa myth was created, and there's just a hint of that, and then people have run with it and reinterpreted it and created a new narrative. So that's not part of the myth at all about Medusa being
Well, I
a
think
victim.
as long as it's like documented, or you know, you can't stop people from interpreting things.
No,
you just
you
fucking
can't.
And people are going to read into things from oftentimes from the things they've experienced. But so I just kind of don't understand, like, unless people are saying like, this is what it's been since the dawn of time, and this is what the only thing it was. If
that's what they're saying.
That's actually what they were saying.
Yeah,
then
that's the thing.
Incorrect, obviously, and it's academically incorrect because you can look back and see that it's not always how it's been read. But if people want to read it that way, I don't see any problem.
Yeah, but my particular issue was the fact that people were saying this is actually what the myth is about. This is the true story of Medusa. She was actually this, whereas no, she wasn't actually that. That is.
Yes, the thing is, what people and that is something that we all are susceptible to. I mean, I don't think that anyone isn't. Is that when Ovid wrote his reinterpretations of certain myths from ancient Greek, mythology, he had like two purposes that were nothing. They were not focused on the myths themselves. What he wanted to do is run a commentary against authority of the emperor at the time, who was imposing sanctions and censorship on poets and other artists, so of whom Ovid was a member. So what he wanted to do was to diss the emperor, and he rewrote a lot of those myths as an analogy for authority at the time. So he was doing something different. He was interested in something else than what we are interested in right now. So there's also that. But that doesn't mean that the story as he has written it doesn't convey an abuse of power. So absolutely, if you take Ovid's version of events, that's what we will get out of it, because he was all about abuse of power. And he also didn't like ancient Greeks. He also didn't. I hate those bastards. So yeah, there's also that. So, but yeah, it depends on where you go for originality. If you go to the actual original myth of Medusa, she was born a gorgon. She was just the mortal one out of the three sisters. That's the difference.
Exactly. She wasn't made into one as punishment and all that.
Yeah. So
and people trying to they were trying to take it back to maybe it's based on like a story of some defamed priestess or something like that. But even from what I was able to like read, it was like even the ancient Greeks had theories about Medusa as a real person, but their theory was that she was like the leader, a warrior, queen of like Trojans or something like this. Like, you know, she was like a warrior queen.
I think you're thinking of Cecilia.
No, it was specifically Medusa that they believed was a like a leader of like barbarian kind of like tribe, and yeah, she was like killed with some kind of trickery or something like that, and the tribe was defeated. So even back then, they believed, you know, she was a.
I didn't know about that. Well, the fascinating thing about myth and mythology is that a lot of it is different across different centuries and even different eras. So you can take your pick, and it's all fine. I mean, I would never feel offended about the interpretation of mythology if it is done without an agenda that would be, you know, aggressive or whatever. I don't know. Even then, I'm not sure I would be offended. I guess it depends. But that's completely different because myths don't have a specific author. They are just the legacy of peoples that created it.
Well, like what we're talking about, it comes down to when people are saying, like, you know, this is the meaning I think. This is how I'm going to represent it. Whatever, that's all right. Versus people saying this is the true meaning. Yeah. So that's the problem.
Yeah, when you go, this is the one single truth. It better be super.
That's and that's really the heart of what I'm talking about.
It's also very easy to disprove, though. I mean, if you have historic sources that are different, and you say, "Well, read this. What happens? Is that it there? No, then you automatically disprove it." So, but yeah, sometimes things can be spread that are false because there's little checking done. I don't know. That's the whole fucking thing. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, the person who popularizes the story most controls the message. You know, like you were saying, controlling the narrative. That was what that critic was trying to do. Control the narrative. If you talk the loudest.
When the Iliad was first written, well, I can't totally tell how it was received, but we know that Achilles eventually became more of an antagonist character when the Romans got a hold of it, and now, for me personally, he's just a fuckboy. I love Achilles, but so it changes over time, and who wants to get what out of the story, and
Actually, what is very interesting is my impression of Achilles has drastically evolved and changed since we talked about him, over time. Because originally for me he was like this very spoiled, selfish, self-centered little brat. But considering like I have never really and then because I thought of that, I basically dismissed him as a personality. But as we discussed, I started to realize that there was a very specific reasoning, and actually very serious reasoning, why he did what he did and how he did what he did. And I appreciated him more on this. So, and that's the beauty of interpreting works. And
was it because I wouldn't shut the fuck up about it? Is that why you...
Well, that drew my attention for sure. But it's not that. I mean, if there was nothing of substance in what you were saying, I would just...
What? Oh,
I
you said
mean,
if there was. All I heard is there was nothing in substance of what you were saying. And
no,
I'm like, there wasn't, but that's quite correct for you.
no, I said if there was nothing of substance in what you were saying, it just wouldn't have changed my opinion. But there were very valid points, and that changed my opinion. So,
Yeah.
yay,
Killian's-
interpretation of art. But
Yes.
going about it like I seriously hate that. Like going about like I know exactly what the work of art is saying.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is
that's
what
pretentious. Just
yes.
period. And that's why a lot of times, people like to attribute art historians and critiques and stuff with being pretentious. And a lot of times that's unfair. Because a lot of times people like to fall on that when somebody's picking on something that they tend to like or like something that they don't like. But sometimes it is quite warranted. People and not just in like critiquing, but like in all sorts of genres and subgenres and movements and stuff. You have elitists, you have people that want to act like they created this school of thought, they created this movement, they created this fashion statement, and anybody who deviates is, a fucking poser. They're don't listen to them, they're fake. And that's pervasive in quite a lot of not just fields, but fashions, all sorts of things. So, I don't know. Don't be a dick, I guess.
Don't be a dick. But it is true that there is a problem when people are saying this is what the work means, this is what the artist intended, versus this is what I get from the work, and this is a way of reading it. And it's so important to make the distinction. I've seen that done so many times with film criticism and criticism of books. And that's why you'll start to say that it is pretentious, because you immediately have a gut feeling and say, this is wrong. No, you can't say that the author meant this, or that's what the work means. That is a reading, and that is so different from artist intention.
Yeah, one inspires conversation and the other kills it.
Exactly.
Those are two very different reactions with how these things are approached.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most definitely. Yeah, I was having this I remember there was this person was doing this critique of Burton films. Tim Burton. And she was saying, "Oh, they're always so anti-woman in all these different ways. They're completely anti-woman, and everything about him is anti-woman. And this is, just like completely misogynist works." And I'm thinking, no, that's not that is a reading, but he's not actually anti-woman or anti. There's no actual specific misogynist meaning of these things, though you can do a reading of the films in that way and you can interpret them, but that's not what the films mean and what the director is all about. It's a different thing. And I remember, like, I actually made a comment under the video about that, and the creator of the video, who is quite a popular person, actually made a direct attack on me because of that, saying, "No, you can't. You have to respect my blah blah blah." And I just, okay, I'm not going to participate in this, so I'll just ignore it. I'm not even going to respond. So that was someone who can't take criticism.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Usually, when people go make absolute statements, because that's actually making an absolute statement, and that's what it comes down to. They will not really accept a refutation or even a difference in opinion. Not very easily, at least. And that, I think, comes very much with the absolutist statement. When you make something like an absolute statement, anything that challenges this absolute absolute status quo, I guess. So people would get defensive of this rather than consider it.
Oh yeah, I mean, aside from that, like I respected the fact that that particular creator put that much work into doing their review, and created a really professional video, and must have watched a whole lot of things, and done a whole lot of work to create that, because doing criticism isn't just something you just pull out of your ass, and especially this was a really well done piece of work. It was just the ideas were far too didactic. It was far too it was far too like saying this is what the author said, this is what the author meant, which was, that seemed to me like a bigger problem because of all the work that was put in, and making the mistake of being that didactic, and having that much motivated reasoning when they were trying to explain something, rather than taking the work as it was and saying this is my interpretation. So yeah, it seemed to be a shame that they'd made that mistake after putting in that much work. And I respected that creator, and to have the that response for them, I thought, oh, okay, maybe they're not deserving of that much respect in the end, so I won't follow that person anymore. But I think it's important to talk about this kind of thing, when we're the problem, the error you can get into in criticism, because criticism is very important. It's a fun thing to do. It's really enlightening, especially when you look at work with a feminist point of view, or a political point of view, or post-colonialist. It's really enlightening and amazing to do that. But you undermine yourself, and you lessen the worth of your criticism if you're doing it from the point of view of saying, oh, this is actually what the author meant. This author is this because of, what I see in the work. So this author must be a fucking racist because this is how I interpret the work. When you're doing that, then your criticism, all that work you put in, becomes, worthless. Or your meaning, what you're saying, your voice loses its authority because you're making that huge error about that person. You don't know that they're a racist, or saying they are that because of what you see in the work, or saying they are like a homophobe or something like that because of what you see in the work is a problem. But if you look at the work and go, oh yeah, so this work is speaks to me about homophobia because of what I see in here and here and here, and this thing here is a classic image of homophobia, or I don't know, fear of gay people or something like that. That is totally valid and really interesting, and that can really create conversation. But when you're crossing that over into author intentions, then it's
when you need to respond to anyone giving you feedback with just an ad hominem, well, that is not a good sign. Let's just say that. Definitely is not someone looking for a conversation.
Yeah, and author, when you're going for author intention, then that creates there's a higher barrier. That means there's more research has to be done on your part. So if you're saying this is what the author meant, then you have to actually go and research and maybe interview the author, look at the author's background, look at the author's other work, and maybe look at interviews and things like that. That's the only way you can really talk about author intention, by actually doing that kind of research.
Unless they're saying something flat out
Yeah.
in their own narrative or whatever they've produced. Like, I hate Jews, here's how to kill them. And then I think you could say they're anti-Semitic.
Very much so.
I think that right. Not only that, I mean, if you have, like, for example, if you have a work where Jewish people are consistently portrayed as, I don't know, whatever, I don't even want to repeat stereotypes, like, all the stereotypes that were firmly in place since the 1400s, and totally enhanced in Nazi Germany and so on. Then yes, you can definitely say that this is anti-Semitic. Absolutely. Even if the author denies it, you can say it, because there is actual evidence in the work. It's not something that is arbitrary enough for you to see certain things that maybe the author did not intend. But yeah, that is a completely different thing. For example, take Les Miserables versus Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I mean the original books by Victor Hugo. So when he wrote Hunchback of Notre Dame, his initial intent, and as far as I know, that was explicitly stated by him, was to do a critique on the lack of maintenance to great monuments like Notre Dame, because the cathedral was in disrepair and things were crumbling apart, and he created a story centered around the cathedral in order to underline the importance of maintaining the architecture. But that is not what people see in this work, because at the time that he wrote it, there were other circumstances, but as the work carries on through the ages, people focus on different things. And there were a lot of other things and other things to pay attention to. Whereas, so you could say that in Hunchback of Notre Dame, you have, the discrimination against gypsies and Romani people in general. You have the authority of the church and the hypocrisy of the church, and you have, social injustice, all of these things. But you can really debate on whether he also intended to make a statement about these things, because there was no official statement by Victor Hugo that this is what I intended. His focus was on the architecture. The other work that he did, Les Miserables, was totally focused on social injustice and basically a debate based on his title on who are the miserables. Are they the people that suffer in the lower tiers of society, or are they those that cause this suffering? So there is a lot of debate who are the miserables in his work, which I find fascinating, and he never said. But what he was very intent on underlying is the social injustice. And that tells me that when he wrote Hunchback of Notre Dame, I think that he also wanted to do that, but that is my interpretation, that is my estimation. That he may have said that, this is about the architecture, perhaps to avoid criticism at the time of producing a work like this. But this is my interpretation. I cannot, in good conscience, say that, it was a clever trick by Victor Hugo to say this, but he actually intended that. That would be very pretentious.
If you're going to, you have to be prepared to back yourself up pretty well, and you need to have evidence and stuff like that. It's hard for me to say, like, flat out, you can never say stuff like that. But the more absolute the thing is that you're saying, the more fucking prepared you have to be. And in terms of things like the article that you were describing, when there's a failure to do that, it's I mean, it sounds like to me that piece could just be for grabbing attention. Like the author, now this is me saying something about the author's intent, but I'm not going to say it in an absolute, but something I might possibly believe if I delve into it more is that they might not believe a single fucking thing that they say in that article. It could be just to get more readership. You know, that's something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they could be. I mean, she did get a ton of comments underneath telling her that you know what she was doing. But so she did get actually got engagement, which is very important on the internet. So
Did all clickbait?
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
From what I saw, it seemed to be sincere rather than.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
It did seem to be sincere, but you can never really tell.
Which is why Oz isn't saying that it is sincere. He's saying that it seems sincere.
Exactly.
And I hate to boil it down to semantics like that, because that gets under my skin. But at the end of the day, intent and tone and how you intend to steer conversations does matter. Because again, it controls whether you spark a discussion or whether you try to turn it off.
Yeah.
And it is about imposition a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, like you keep saying, you know, the whole idea of critiques being wanky and pretentious is when they replace the author's words, when they replace the artist's words with their own. That's when they start to become wanky and pretentious more than anything else. I feel anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, like Pitt says, just saying that about a critic is unfair unless they do that kind of thing. And that's when it really starts to feel to me that, you know, people are being wanky and pretentious when they're doing that. And yeah, I spent many years at art school, so yeah, I had a lot of this.
He spent many years at art school wanking, so it's all about wankers.
That's all they
So
do.
there's like a fever the last few years. As far as like messaging in movies, like big movies, like, oh, I don't know, what's one? Say Star Wars. That there's been like a message in those movies that is like anti certain things and pro certain things, and people, you know, amateur commentators, amateur critics, I would say, really going crazy on new Star Wars. And exactly, the Force is female. Yeah. So, like, sort of looking at these movies and saying, like, this is the agenda that's going on. And, like, they talk about it in a lot of it is in Star Wars as well as in other stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. How do you feel about like how valid is that criticism? People can't assume like, oh, this was George Lucas's agenda / this is the new people's agenda.
That's a good point, Baines. That's a good point.
Yeah, I would say, and again, I will not talk in absolutes, but I think that it was made pretty clear that by, you know, Kathleen Kennedy, the Kathleen Kennedy team, that they did have an agenda and they did want to create a specific set of symbolisms in the new movies. I do think that they absolutely intended to at least inject new things in Star Wars. What I'm not sure, and I think that there was a bit of a gap in this, is that they assumed that these things didn't already exist there, or that the setting and the universe was not hospitable to such things as it was. And I think that this was an error in interpretation, in my opinion. They didn't need to do this really violent, disruptive take on this, especially off camera. I mean, aside the movies themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree, and I won't speak in absolutes either, but yeah, I would agree to that. I agree with that.
It's interesting, yeah, because when I've sort of had criticism of those films, I've never had a problem with. I've never really approached them from that angle, saying, "Yeah, there's a problem in them because they're too overly, agenda-driven or something like that." My problem with them is that they're just not really very well written. There's writing issues rather than agenda. I don't care the gender of any of the characters. It's freaking just write it better. I don't care about anything else. Have whatever characters you want. Just
if the movies were good, this backlash would not be nearly what it is. There wouldn't be much to say if the movies were great.
But
some
part
people
of that
might
would be having more substance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that, just in fact of having more substance, could even open it up to more or less. I don't fucking know how things work. I don't know.
I mean, for example,
you need this shit to get going these days. you need a good fucking scandal.
True.
Like the latest Mad Max movie,
Fury Road.
Yes, thank you. I don't know why I keep forgetting the title.
There's only 90 Mad Max movies. How can you forget which is which?
Which I believe was an awesome artistic piece of work. I really enjoyed it, even though it's not necessarily, the genre isn't necessarily my cup of tea. I love that movie. I really liked it. I mean, you did get some people being offended that you had a female main character alongside the male main character.
Really? I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, you didn't hear about it because they were a very small minority and were very silly in the arguments that they made. So people dismissed them and they were just left on their own. Unlike what happened with Star Wars. So there you have it.
Very, very true.
I remember I took my brother to see Mad Max back a long time ago, before the world ended. But
good reference.
Thank you. And
in the before time.
And I remember he generally liked the entire movie, as I knew that he would, because we tend to have the same taste in these sorts of things. But I remember I found it very strange the way he reacted to one of the scenes, and it's the scene where Furiosa is fighting Max. It's like after they first kind of get together and they're fighting by the truck and stuff. And I remember at one point he goes something like, just clock her or something, or like, to him they were letting her get the leg up on him too much, when it never occurred that way to me. And I don't know if necessarily that was because she was a woman character or if because Max was kind of being sidelined, but it always stuck out to me. Like I didn't read that scene that way. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. I guess that criticism kind of calls back to that for me, but which doesn't really add anything to the conversation. But I always just kind of found it real strange.
Yeah, I mean, it does tie in, I think, to the whole idea of subjective.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember how we reacted once to, and this was a long time ago, to seeing Kill Bill, and his reaction to that stuck with me as well, and that was that there's too much like women fighting and kicking ass, and when you watch it, it's not like women fighting is in like cat fighting, like they're good choreographed martial art scenes, like they're fantastic. To him, the thing that was wrong was with that, and I don't know, he could have changed his mind eventually, but it was that a woman was taking too much of the spotlight, and it always
Oh, wow.
it's very bizarre when I look back at it, because he's very pro feminist in other ways. I don't know. I guess you could never really cut and dry anybody that easily. This is me needing to sort out a lot of issues I have with my brother, I think. Spilling out. So I'm just going to box them back in, push them to the side.
No, but that is pretty indicative in the sense that for me, I never really feel that whether the main character is male or female, they are the main character, and they are supposed to be, you know, whatever the character design is. If they are supposed to be a kick-ass warrior, I expect them to be a kick-ass warrior, and gender doesn't come into the picture for me.
Sorry.
No.
Or for Uma Thurman.
Mm-hmm.
For Uma, no, I can't say her name.
Thurman.
Theremin. For Uma Thurman's character in that movie, for me too, it's ultimately just how cool that character is. But I think for me, there is a little bit of an excitement that she is female, not because females, you know, always have to be badass and kick ass, but it was just so rare to see a female character like that made in that way. I love the way she acts out the character. I love the choreography. I love like watching every little facial expression she makes, because the first thing that on her mind doesn't seem to be, you know, how can I make this character desirable? It's like real rage and smoldering and all sorts of things that it just brings you right along with that character, and I just adore seeing that. So that's the way that that character being female kind of mattered to me. I wouldn't have hated it if it was a male character. I still would have been all over that shit, but it's just a little thing to me.
Yeah. That's that. You know what I really like? If I look at it from that, this is a female warrior character, is that it is shown extremely viscerally how much she worked to be the level that she is. It was she didn't just, you know, appear into the world perfectly formed like Mary Poppins. She got her ass kicked so many times before she was at a level that it was very hard to kick her ass.
And even at the level she's at now, she still takes some hits.
Yes.
You know, she gets dirty, she gets thrown around, you know. She gets fucking buried alive at one point and like has to push her way out, you know.
Yeah. I think she's one of, like, easily one of the best action characters out there. You know, gender irrelevant, but if we go at you know, female action characters, she's right up there with Sarah Connor, I think.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Well,
Great
our call
movie.
is going to end in a minute, so we should wrap up, I think.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much for listening to QUACKCAST number 556.
Yay!
All right.
Yay! Bye!
Bye! Respect authors. Don't be upset. Bye-bye.
That's what she said. Here's the title for this one. That's what she said.
Thank you, Baines. That's awesome.